So you found this video because you're thinking about maybe how to start a meeting or how to do like a icebreaker that's not super goofy and cringy and corny, or just how to create a kind of a container or a dynamic or a culture for a conversation or a meeting or a retreat or a work group, whatever, that's going to bring people together and get people working well as a team. So, right, again, that's kind of what you want out of this. I think the biggest risk with icebreakers is even if they're kind of fun, they're just like, okay, well, we just wasted 10 minutes. Like, what do we want to do there? So be conscious of the time you set aside, the structure you give to them. But if you use some of the questions I'm about to share with you here, I think it'll set you up in a way that's pretty successful. And you can then let them in on why you're doing it, that this is not a waste of time. We ask these questions intentionally to foster a psychological environment that's going to make this meeting much more successful. So let's get into it. By the way, my name's Jackson Kirch. I'm a partner at Happiness Means Business and Warrior Leader Training Companies, where we work with everyone from military to nonprofits to education to police to law enforcement to, am I missing any groups? I probably am. Just about everyone applying the science of happiness and human flourishing to improve performance. So check us out if you want more. But here's the first thing. Don't say icebreaker probably, because probably, 10% of people to maybe 50% of people, when I hear icebreaker, I'm thinking to myself like, golly, man, okay, this is going to be awkward and I'm going to have to listen to some really cringe things, and like one or two people are going to be like super into it and out there, and then everyone else is going to be kind of like, well, I don't know about this. So I don't know what a better term is. Hey, let's just start the meeting with a quick conversation or an opening question or setting the container, whatever it is. Icebreaker, maybe not so. All right, first question, and this is kind of a frame on a question, but I'll give you a couple examples. Something like this. Hey, if you could have anyone in the world as a dinner guest, who would you pick? Hey, what's an accomplishment from your life that you're most proud of? Hey, what's a book that you've read in the last year, or your favorite book of all time? Basically it's something that maybe pushes a little bit of vulnerability, but it's intentional, and it's getting that person to open up and share some things about what's important to them, what their interests are, and how they see the world. So I'll give you a big time hack here. I draw oftentimes from a set of 36 questions designed by psychologists to bring people closer together, which you can look up on the internet and find at 36 questions. But, those are things, like I said, about, if you could have anyone as a dinner guest, who would it be? What's your perfect day? All it is here is you're not going too over the top, but you're trying to create a question that gets people thinking and sharing about what's really important to them, their interests, their passions, and how they see the world. It may even be something like, hey, what's something you're passionate about that not a lot of other people are? And then they tell you about their weird, hobby. I love to build model airplanes, even though, I'm a sales VP at this company. It just gets people sharing in a pretty low stakes way, but in a way that's actually intentional, instead of just like, if you were a fruit, what fruit would you be? Right? Okay, second one is one of my favorites. I call it the old picture exercise. You just ask people to go back, scroll through their photos and find something maybe 3-4 years old they haven't thought of in a while, a memory that makes them happy. And then either with the small group, or you can get into like pairs or trios, depending on the size. And you're just going to share the story behind that image and why it was impactful to them. Again, you can see what we're doing. It's the same thing as the first question. We're just doing it in a creative way. You're just getting people to share about what's important to them. That's kind of the foundation. I've heard it said before, if you want to be interesting, be interested. So if you're just genuinely interested in other people, that sets you up for success. So we're just applying that and creating context and structure for it in the meeting, okay? So there you go. People can share for about 5 minutes. Then when you come back together as a big group, you can always debrief these two if you want, for a little bit of, hey, what was that like? Who here had a good conversation? What'd you learn? Whatever. Third one is a little bit more tailorable to the context of your meeting, and especially if you have a business agenda or whatever, you can structure it in a couple ways. I'll tell you how, but it's some version of, hey, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? Or what's something interesting you've learned recently that you think everyone else should? Or what's one of the most impactful lessons you've learned in business or leadership or life, or the topic, whatever. Now, this is where I say this can be a nice one if you maybe do have a tighter agenda that you want to stick to, because let's say you're talking about your monthly operations improvement meeting. You might say, hey, what's the best advice you've ever gotten from an employee about operations improvement? Hey, what was the most interesting new lesson you've learned in the last 3 years about operations improvements? Or, hey, if you had one habit that you think would make a really successful operation, what would it be? So you're still getting that kind of a creative icebreaker, but you can kind of tailor it to be more relevant to whatever you're doing. And oftentimes that's going to trigger ideas that may come up later in that meeting that are valuable for getting the result that you want. So there you have it. I know these were not total cut and paste questions. Sorry, I'm going to push you to think a little bit because you know your people and you know the meeting better than I do, but there are 3 really good frames. So number 1 is that thoughtful, intriguing question to evoke the person into sharing their interests and passions. So, the dinner guest question, what's something that you think about a lot that maybe other people don't? What are you most proud of? What's the perfect day for you? What's your perfect work day for you? What's your dream vacation, right? Whatever it is, they're gonna get a little bit more personal and share what matters to them. Second one is that old picture exercise, and there are different versions you can obviously do on that, of a picture with a friend or a picture with a travel experience or a picture at work or right, whatever. But the idea again is just getting them to share about what matters and create that connection. And then finally, some sort of knowledge sharing or wisdom sharing that you can align with the context of your meeting or not. But again, it just gets people thinking and sharing in an interesting way. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can subscribe, check out our newsletter, whatever, happinessmeansbusiness.com, warriorleadertraining.com, guardianleadertraining.com. Those are all of our resources for business, nonprofit, as well as military and police and first responders. Reach out if you want, coaching, speaking, training, or just a free conversation to talk about your organization. We're happy to help. So this has been Jackson Kirchis, and I'll see you next time.